The next topic today we want to talk about was Elon Musk and specifically SpaceX. Just this week, just this past week, having launched Starship on top of Super Heavy booster into, I think, just suborbital, and then having the Super Heavy booster flip over and come back to the launch pad, where it was then subsequently caught by the launch pad using what they call the chopsticks. The launch pad had these two arms that closed in around it, and the thing comes to basically a hover and then settles nicely and slowly on top of the chopsticks. Now, I think it's difficult to overstate just how cool this is. Difficult really to have hyperbole here, right? So if you think about the economics of this and the theory behind this, imagine if you take a 747 across the ocean, and then on the other side, you dump the 747 in the ocean and everybody gets off, and that's what commercial flight will look like, right? You build a plane, fly to the other side of the world, and then dump it in the ocean. And then you have to build a new plane to fly somewhere else. That's what space was like, right? You basically threw away the vehicle every time. And the vehicles were quite small. They weren't, you could fit relatively little payload. And so, of course, we all know this by now. Elon Musk's insight was you need massive vehicles and you need to be able to reuse them. And not just reuse them, but rapidly reuse them. And so we've seen them launch the boosters onto platforms in the middle of the ocean, which is sort of okay, but you got to get them back to the land. And we've seen them land, somewhere near the landing pad, the small boosters. It's sort of okay. But he's now managed to get the biggest booster in the history of the world to land back on the launch pad. So there's no need to move it around. There's no need to collect it from the ocean. And so he now has massive uplift capacity and reusability, which completely changes the economics of space travel. Just completely. Innovation is making things 10 or 100x easier, cheaper, or faster. The printing press didn't invent writing, but it invented mass distribution of writing, right? Uber did not invent taxi, but it made taxi 10 or 100x easier. Elon Musk did not invent rocketry, but he's now making it 10 or 100x or more cheaper and easier. This is a revelation. No one should be taking anything away from him about that. And yeah, they did it this week. They did it on the first try. The thing was sort of on fire a little bit at the end there, but that's okay. And everyone was appropriately going crazy. Ray, I understand you've been following Elon Musk closely, been following Tesla and SpaceX closely, I imagine. I mean, what did you think when you saw this happen?
Yeah, this is definitely, historic time to be making this, but it's not the work of one day or even 1 year. This I think this was just Starship. This was I think the fifth test flight or sixth test flight that was live streamed. So and every time prior to that, there was a Starship test flight that, exploded or whatever, and then you see all the headlines in the media of how, how much of a failure it is. But that's not how it works. And how the way it works is that, they want these mistakes to happen. They want things to blow up so they know exactly what to fix. And by the way, with the Falcon 9, so the Falcon 9 now almost does daily operations. It almost launch every single day using the Falcon 9, and every single day the booster lands back on Earth after it delivers a payload to space. The uniqueness of Starship is that it really takes things to a whole new level when it comes to rocketry and space is because of the size of the ship and the payload that it can carry is I don't know what exactly the comparison is, but if you look at the Falcon 9 next to Starship, like it's like 5 to 10 times bigger in terms of size. That thing is really, really huge. So to be able to launch that and then land back the super heavy booster, which is an insane amount of engines on that thing, and be able to reuse it is really gonna take things to the next level.
Just on that, so the Falcon 9 here, it can carry 22.8 tons or 50,000 pounds. Starship is done to carry up to 150 tons or 330,000 pounds. And that is some 6, 7, almost 7 times the capacity of Falcon 9. It is the biggest, you know, moving object in terms of that's not like floating in water. It's an astounding feat of engineering.
And the biggest progress that SpaceX is doing, and Elon has talked about a lot, is not just being able to launch and land the Starship, but the pace of how quickly they can produce new Starships. And he really learned that the hard way with scaling production with Tesla. And to do it with rockets and be able to scale production with rockets is a lot more difficult. So the economics, and like you mentioned earlier about flying Boeing 777 or whatever, and then having to dump it afterwards. It's really all about economics and getting that right so that it can happen. There was today actually he Elon responded to somebody that posted the whole Mars. I don't know if you follow him on X, but it was really interesting. He gave him a very good. I'm going to read it out quickly because I think it's very interesting. So they were talking about, kind of the cost of launch to low Earth orbit. And then Elon responded and said, getting the cost per ton to the surface of Mars low enough that humanity has the resources to make life multiplanetary requires roughly 1000x improvement in rocket and spacecraft technology. The recent US Mars missions have had a cost per ton of useful load to surface of Mars of about $1 billion. To build a city on Mars that can grow by itself likely requires at least 1 million tons of equipment, which would therefore be more than $1,000 trillion, an obviously impossible number given that the US GDP is only 29 trillion. However, if rocket technology can be improved by 1000x, then the cost of becoming sustainable multiplanetary would drop to 1 trillion, which could be spread out over 40 years, which is less than 25 billion a year. So and then he goes on a little bit more, but the idea is that being able to get it down to make economic sense for humanity to afford to build a base on Mars. That's a very high level summary that he did, but
No, it's brilliant. They're using first principles engineering to solve an economics problem.